bites of deceit often lingered, a bitter aftertaste to what was once sweet. After Harold passed, the sprawling house echoed with an unnerving quiet. I found solace in the garden, coaxing life from the soil, just to hear a whisper against the silence. Nights became an endless expanse, the quiet amplifying the hollow ache within me. When Adam approached me 3 months later, his eyes alight with a manufactured hope, his voice painting vibrant pictures of a future with Charlotte, seeking help with a down payment for their first home, I responded with an impulse born of grief. I didn't request a single document, no formal promise of return. He was my son. A lifeline, it felt, the last vestige of purpose I clung to. I drew out the final remnants of what Harold and I had painstakingly saved for our quiet retirement. It wasn't a king's ransom. Our dreams had always been modest, believing we'd have ample time to rebuild after the children had found their own paths. But that money now had a singular resonance: Adam's burgeoning future. My hand, a testament to years of unseen tremors, shook slightly as I extended the check across the aged kitchen table, my voice a soft murmur of trust, urging him to build a life of genuine worth. He pressed a perfunctory kiss to my cheek, the promise of no regrets hanging in the air. When they finally moved into that quaint brick house just across town, I arrived laden with a basket of freshly laundered linens, 2 warm apple pies, and a humble watering can I'd lovingly adorned for their porch. Charlotte offered a fleeting, distracted smile, her attention firmly anchored to the precise arrangement of furniture. Adam, with practiced ease, swore he'd return the kindness once they found their equilibrium. I didn't anticipate recompense. I wasn't keeping score. Love, in its purest form, I believed, transcended ledgers. Back then, I held a naive conviction. If I poured enough of myself, my time, my dwindling savings, my inherent kindness, then love would stand eternal. That loyalty would possess an immutable meaning that they would remember. But the seasons, indifferent to sentiment, cycled on, and the fragile tendrils of gratitude withered, giving way to an insidious sense of entitlement. And now I'm left adrift, pondering the silent chasm that opens when those you've given everything to pretend you never gave at all. The succulent aroma of rosemary-infused lamb still permeated the air when Eleanor, a sudden burst of vitality, materialized through the doorway. She hadn't breathed a word of her impending visit. My last intel placed her deeply entrenched in a project in Boston, her return not anticipated until the cool embrace of autumn. Yet, there she stood, her coat still clinging, cheeks flushed from the crisp evening air, arms cradling a vibrant bouquet of hydrangeas and a bottle of a rather fine Merlot. She pressed a cool kiss to my cheek, her whispered, "Thought I'd surprise you, Mom," carrying an unsettling undertone. We squeezed around my ancient dining table, myself, Adam, Charlotte, the grandchildren, and now Eleanor, the familiar, worn placemats, testaments to 20 years of shared meals, still beneath our plates. Eleanor, with her customary precision, served herself neat rows of roasted vegetables beside a single, perfectly toasted slice of artisan bread. She offered carefully curated anecdotes about her flight, her latest work challenges, a particularly grueling hiking trail she'd recently conquered. Adam and Charlotte maintained polite, if somewhat stiff, smiles, but I caught Adam's gaze, a restless, almost predatory flicker, repeatedly darting towards her. Then, abruptly, halfway through the meal, she turned to me. Her voice, deceptively casual, like a benign inquiry about the weather, pierced the comfortable hum of dinner. "Mom, is the $2,000 I send you every month still adequate, or do you require more assistance?" My fork, laden with tender lamb, froze in midair, suspended in an unyielding tableau. The room didn't merely quiet, it seemed to seize, every molecule holding its breath. I turned to her, my movements glacially slow, desperate to decipher the meaning behind her words. "What money?" Her brow, a delicate furrow, conveyed genuine confusion. "The funds I've been dispatching through Adam, Mom, every single month for the past 2 years." The air, thick with unspoken truths, seemed to evacuate from the room. I looked at Adam. He offered no sound, no movement. Charlotte's hand, A white-knuckled grip on her napkin remained unnervingly fixed, her smile a brittle facade. The grandchildren, sensing the profound shift in atmosphere, looked up from their plates, their young faces mirroring our adult confusion. I turned back to Eleanor, who, with an almost deliberate slowness, reached into her elegant handbag, retrieving her phone. Adam's voice finally materialized, thin, reedy, barely a whisper. "We've been managing it, handling some of her expenses on her behalf. For 2 years. Eleanor's voice was sharp now, a honed blade. "I explicitly instructed you to ensure she never had a single worry." My throat, a parched desert, refused to cooperate. My hands, icy and unresponsive. All I could feel was a dull, sickening weight, a crushing pressure against my ribs. I stared at the son for whom I had once emptied my very last dime, and a chilling question solidified in my mind. How long had this elaborate deception, this profound betrayal, been playing out right under my unsuspecting nose? Why would my own child, my own flesh and blood, conceal this from me? What dark machinations had they woven around these stolen funds? After Harold's unexpected passing, the luxury of emotional collapse was simply not an option. Bills, relentless in their demands, scoffed at grief. The children were teenagers then. Eleanor, already possessing a quiet maturity at 17, Adam, just turning 20. I secured a second job at the bustling diner on Main Street, pouring lukewarm coffee for weary truckers before dawn. Then, by night, folding endless piles of damp laundry at the nondescript motel nearby. Sleep came in snatched moments, mere fragments. I sacrificed birthdays, missed choir concerts, the eagerly anticipated fall play. I rationalized it, convincing myself it was a temporary measure, just until we regained some semblance of stability. The most arduous part wasn't the grueling physical labor. It was the constant performance, the meticulous concealment of my utter exhaustion, the pretense of unwavering composure, all to ensure my children clung to the belief that our world, though irrevocably fractured, remained fundamentally safe. I meticulously clipped coupons until my fingers cramped with the effort. I sold my cherished engagement ring the week the ancient furnace, with a dramatic wheeze, finally gave out. I clung to my simple wedding band, unable to sever that final, tangible link to all I had lost. Eleanor, even at her tender age, learned to conjure meals from meager ingredients and stretch a budget before most girls her age grasped the rudiments of balancing a checkbook. She was always quiet, meticulously careful, and never, ever voiced a single desire for anything beyond necessity. She earned her way into a prestigious college without a shred of financial assistance from me. She embraced scholarships, juggled multiple part-time jobs, and never once uttered a syllable of complaint. Adam, however, possessed an uncanny, almost preternatural talent for requiring more than we possessed. A minor fender bender, a missed credit card payment, a friend who conveniently borrowed money and vanished into thin air. Each time I, resourceful in my despair, found a way to cover it, reassuring myself he was merely navigating a particularly rough patch. He called me his rock, his voice imbued with a manufactured dependence, professing he wouldn't know what he'd do without me. I clung to those empty words, those fleeting reassurances, far longer than any sane person should have. Even when he and Charlotte decided to move in together, it was I who provided the hefty security deposit, who helped furnish their new place, who covered the initial, daunting bills during that challenging first year. Eleanor, once she secured her significant promotion out west, offered to dispatch financial assistance, but Adam vehemently insisted he would handle everything. "I'll manage the bills, Mom. It will be considerably simpler if the money flows through me. You've already done more than enough." I believed him. I desperately wanted to believe him. I convinced myself it was a profound sign of his burgeoning maturity, that he was finally blossoming, learning to stand independently and, as he'd always promised, take meticulous care of his aging mother. And when Eleanor called that initial month, her voice laced with concern, checking to ensure everything had seamlessly gone through, I lied. I told her yes, everything was absolutely fine. I didn't want her to harbor any concern. I certainly didn't want to admit that I hadn't seen a single, Solitary scent. Adam had explained he was using the funds to cover my soaring insurance premiums and the perpetually daunting property taxes. Matters he adamantly stated he didn't want me to stress over. I acquiesced. I didn't demand receipts. I didn't insist on tangible proof because, in the deepest, most vulnerable recesses of my heart, I desperately yearned to believe he was speaking the unvarnished truth. Had I, in my profound, aching desire to believe in his love, deliberately, foolishly, ignored every stark, blazing warning sign? After the last lingering guest had finally departed, and the dishes, in a deafening silence, were meticulously stacked, Eleanor remained. I knew, with an unsettling certainty, that she would. Her gaze had barely strayed from Adam throughout the entire evening, watching him with an unsettling intensity, as if anticipating an inevitable fracture. I sat at the kitchen table, methodically wrapping leftovers, battling to keep my hands from betraying the violent tremor within me. She placed her phone between us, its screen a stark, luminous testament to her bank statements. There, she stated, her voice devoid of any discernible emotion. Every 15th of the month, precisely $2,000 for you, Mom. Sent directly to Adam's account, exactly as he had painstakingly instructed. I stared at the stark, irrefutable numbers. So precise. So damningly final. 25 separate deposits, totaling an astronomical $50,000. My stomach churned, a cold, sickening knot forming deep within me. He explicitly told me you were struggling to keep up with the property taxes, she continued, her voice unwavering. That you were simply too proud, too fiercely independent, to directly ask for assistance. I didn't want to cause you any embarrassment, so I reluctantly acquiesced. I truly believed he was acting with your best interests at heart. I looked at her, my steadfast, unwavering daughter, and felt something profound and brittle inside me utterly collapse. Eleanor, I whispered, the words barely audible, choked by emotion. I never saw a single cent. I had no idea you were sending anything at all. She was silent for a long, agonizing moment. Her face hardened, not with sorrow, but with something far sharper, more resolute, something akin to cold, implacable fury. They've been systematically lying to both of us, Mom. My breath hitched, caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. I had clung with a desperate, fragile tenacity to the belief that Adam's egregious failings were merely careless, never intentionally cruel, that he made impulsive mistakes, never calculated, malevolent choices. But now, staring at the raw, brutal truth laid bare in stark numbers and suffocating silence, I felt the piercing ache of something far deeper, something undeniably intentional, something meticulously planned. Eleanor leaned forward, her voice low and chillingly even, a barely suppressed fire beneath its calm surface. I intend to discover precisely where that money vanished, Mom. Every last penny. I nodded slowly, but my mind was already racing, meticulously sifting through countless past conversations, replaying evasive deflections, flimsy excuses that, in hindsight, had never quite resonated. Was this a genuine, if catastrophic, mistake or a meticulously crafted, long-term plan? The following morning, I slipped out of the house before the first golden rays of sun pierced through the ancient trees. I told no one, not even Eleanor. I craved space, a sanctuary for profound thought, away from the reverberations of her justifiable anger, away from the suffocating weight of my own profound shame. I drove across town to the distinguished law office of Geraldine Marsh, a woman I had known, respected, and implicitly trusted since before Harold's passing. She had expertly managed his complex estate, guiding me with a steady hand through labyrinthine paperwork when my mind was too clouded by grief to decipher fine print. She greeted me with her customary warmth, then settled me into her office, a comforting sanctuary filled with ancient, dusty law books and meticulously framed certificates. I recounted what had transpired, not every agonizing detail, but enough for her to nod with slow, profound understanding. You wish to ascertain what assets you still possess? She inquired, her tone soft, yet undeniably clear, cutting through the haze of my uncertainty. She promptly retrieved the relevant documents and meticulously guided me through them. "The title to your primary residence is unencumbered," she stated with calm assurance. "And the property where Adam and Charlotte currently reside, it remains unequivocally in your name, Celeste." I stared at her, my ears struggling to process the information, almost unwilling to trust what I was hearing, a spark of something new igniting within me. They reside there? But I truly believed I had given it to them outright. "You granted them permission to move in," she gently corrected me, her voice a balm. "However, you never formally signed over the deed. You may not recall explicitly declining, but you did. We prepared the transfer paperwork years ago, but you never appended your signature. You requested time to deliberate." The memory, like a ghost, returned to me, a faint, unsettling whisper from the past. Adam, hunched over my kitchen table, pleading his case with a well-rehearsed desperation. Charlotte, chiming in with saccharine sweetness about stability and responsibility. And me, murmuring that I needed to prey on it. I never did sign. I released a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding, a profound, shuddering sigh of relief, a fragile hope blossoming. "Thank God," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion, tinged with a nascent strength. "Thank God I didn't." Geraldine offered me a quiet, knowing smile. "It's still yours, Celeste," she reiterated softly, her words resonating with a newfound power. "All of it." I departed her office, clutching a copy of the deed, and something else, something I hadn't felt in an excruciatingly long time, something electrifying. Leverage. Not for petty revenge, not for a public spectacle, but because I desperately needed to reclaim a sense of agency, to remember that I still possessed power, that I still had a voice in my own life. For far too long, I had swallowed my pride, suffocated my dignity, all to maintain a fragile, illusory peace, to cling to a dwindling belief in the son I had painstakingly raised. But now the unvarnished truth was laid bare before me, a stark, undeniable reality. Could I reclaim not only what was rightfully mine, but also my long-lost dignity? That Sunday, after the church service concluded, I lingered longer than usual outside. The sermon had centered on the virtue of humility, but the words barely pierced through the tumultuous cacophony of my thoughts. My mind had inexorably drifted back to Adam and Charlotte, to the raw, wounded expression on Eleanor's face when she revealed the devastating transfer receipts, to the crushing weight of the truth we had unearthed. I stood near the church steps, sipping lukewarm coffee from a flimsy paper cup, watching the congregation slowly disperse towards their vehicles. That's when Reverend Jonah, his kind face framed by his distinguished silver hair, approached me. "A truly lovely morning, isn't it?" he observed, adjusting his crisp color. "I hear Eleanor is in town. A remarkable woman, your daughter, always so wonderfully grounded." I managed a strained smile, though a cold knot tightened in my chest. "Yes, she's been a great help to me with a few matters," I replied, my voice carefully neutral, betraying nothing. "Wonderful," he exclaimed warmly. "I just ran into Adam and Charlotte last week, at that impressive new car dealership on Hamilton Avenue. They were admiring one of those sleek new electric SUVs, quite sharp-looking too. They informed me that business has been exceptionally good, and they were quite proud to be supporting you. Said it was the very least they could do for their dear old mom." I offered no verbal response. I simply nodded politely, maintaining my carefully constructed smile just long enough for him to continue on his way. Inside, my breath had solidified into a block of ice, a silent scream. Later that afternoon, I called Eleanor out to the porch. We sat together in the gentle shade as a playful breeze rustled through the ancient oak trees. I relayed to her Reverend Jonah's words, the audacity of their public masquerade as devoted caretakers. How they had shamelessly exploited her money, not merely to inflate their own lavish lifestyle, but to meticulously polish their public image, a grotesque distortion. Her eyes narrowed, the sapphire blue hardening with cold, simmering anger. "They're not just stealing, Mom," she stated, her voice low and dangerous, a predatory calm. "They're advertising it as an act of selfless charity, using your vulnerability as their personal billboard." I nodded slowly, my own anger simmering just beneath the surface, a slow burn. "They used your very name, Eleanor, to fabricate their false reputation, built on a foundation of lies. She pulled out her phone again, her fingers swiftly tapping through her meticulously saved emails and PDFs. I possess every single transfer record, every accompanying note. I will ensure that the appropriate individuals see them, and see them clearly. But I wasn't contemplating public exposure just yet. I was consumed by the memory of every church member who had ever told me how incredibly blessed I was to have such devoted children. Every time I had smiled and nodded, too mortified, too ashamed, to contradict them, a silent accomplice to their deception. They hadn't just lied to me. They had brazenly lied about me. They had meticulously constructed an entire fictional narrative where they were the heroic saviors, and I, their pitiable, dependent burden, a living prop in their twisted play. It wasn't merely about the money. It was about absolute, soul-crushing control. It was about standing in a crowded room, listening to them being lauded for a generosity they hadn't bestowed, while I stood beside them, applauding their deceit, utterly oblivious to the insidious truth. Now, with chilling clarity, I saw it all. The meticulously planned dinners, the unexpected drop-ins, the precisely choreographed gestures of shallow affection. It wasn't love. It was a calculated, grotesque performance. An unwitting audience of well-meaning neighbors, a grand stage of fabricated good intentions, a meticulously crafted script written in stolen benevolence. And I, hapless me, had been their finest prop. Quiet, grateful, unaware. Not anymore. How many years had they been performing this charade of kindness, all while callously profiting from my unwitting silence? I meticulously planned the annual family cookout as I always had. Grilled hamburgers, creamy potato salad, sweet iced tea served in gleaming glass pitchers. Enough folding chairs to comfortably accommodate the sprawling, extended family. No one questioned it. I'd hosted these gatherings for decades. People simply assumed it was just another blissful Sunday of sizzling corn on the grill and children's joyous laughter echoing across the sun-drenched yard. But this time, beneath the veneer of normalcy, something else, something far more volatile, was simmering just beneath the surface, a quiet revolution brewing. Eleanor, a silent, purposeful force, assisted with the setup, her movements quiet and deliberate, almost ceremonial. She spoke little, but her piercing gaze rarely left Adam and Charlotte as they arrived, Charlotte in a sundress that was far too polished for a casual backyard gathering, Adam already laughing too loudly, his voice grating on my nerves, a discordant note. They effortlessly worked the crowd, a practiced performance. Charlotte dispensed air kisses to cheeks, Adam playfully tossed a football with one of the nephews, both of them radiating the unshakable confidence of individuals who genuinely believe the truth will never, ever catch up to them. We allowed the evening to breathe for a while, plates filled to overflowing, conversations flowing effortlessly, the comforting, soft lull of familiarity washing over the gathering. Then, as the long shadows stretched across the meticulously manicured lawn, and people settled into their chairs with generous second helpings, Eleanor, with a quiet grace, rose from the deck, her presence commanding an unforeseen attention. "Mom," she began, her voice clear, calm, and utterly unwavering, each word a deliberate stroke. "I believe it's time we informed everyone what has truly been happening." A sudden, profound hush descended upon the gathering. Someone laughed nervously, the sound brittle and quickly extinguished, like a faulty light bulb. Eleanor looked directly at me, and I offered a small, almost imperceptible nod, a signal of an alliance forged in fire. "For over 2 years," she continued, her voice gaining strength, each syllable a hammer blow, "I've been sending money to assist Mom. $2,000 every single month. I preferred not to send it through the mail, so I meticulously sent it through Adam. He explicitly told me he would take care of it, ensuring Mom received every penny." Several heads, like startled birds, turned towards Adam. He froze, mid-sip of his drink, his face draining of color, a grotesque mask of shock. "I genuinely believed Mom was receiving it," Eleanor calmly continued, her gaze fixed on her brother, a laser beam of accusation, "every single month. until just last week when I discovered she hadn't seen a single dime, not one. Charlotte, her carefully constructed composure fracturing, stood up first, a desperate, flailing gesture. Eleanor, that is a profoundly serious accusation, entirely baseless. Adam quickly interjected, his voice tinged with panic, a thin, reedy sound. There must have been a mix-up, something in the account routing. We've been managing so much. Bills, taxes, property upkeep. Perhaps some of it got delayed, an oversight, nothing more. Eleanor, with a gesture of elegant finality, held up her hand, a silent command. Then, she reached into her purse and retrieved a neatly organized folder, a thin weapon. These, she announced, her voice resonating with chilling authority, are the transfer records. All of them. Every single deposit to the account Adam explicitly provided, his very own account. And this, she unfolded another crisp page, its edges sharp, is a notarized agreement. He told me Mom was simply too overwhelmed to handle the money herself, that it would be significantly easier if he managed it, for her own good. People leaned forward, their faces etched with a mixture of disbelief and dawning, horrified realization. Aunt Vera slowly, deliberately, removed her oversized sunglasses, her eyes wide with shock. Uncle Don muttered something unintelligible beneath his breath, a low growl of disgust. No one, absolutely no one, was laughing now. I stepped forward, into the center of the gathering, claiming my rightful space. My voice, though not overtly loud, carried with an unshakable clarity, each word landing like a carefully placed stone. For the record, I stated, my gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, I was not overwhelmed. I did not ask for assistance. And I certainly did not see a single penny of what Eleanor so generously sent. Charlotte's carefully constructed composure had entirely crumbled, her face now a mask of rigid blankness, a shattered illusion. Adam looked like a small, guilty child caught red-handed cheating on a test, too utterly shocked to construct even a credible lie, his eyes darting frantically. There's more, I continued, my voice steady, unwavering, much more. The house you are currently residing in? It is not yours. I verified the deed. It remains unequivocally under my name, legally and completely mine. More murmurs erupted, a collective gasp, a wave of shock rippling through the crowd. Someone somewhere dropped a fork, the clatter shockingly loud in the sudden, profound silence. You have 30 days to vacate the premises, I stated, my voice devoid of emotion, a cold, unwavering command. I will require the keys by the end of the month. No exceptions. No shouting. No dramatic outbursts. Just unvarnished truth, dropped into the center of the yard like a heavy stone plunging into still water, sending ripples of shock across every face, a seismic shift in their perception. Eleanor calmly sat down beside me, a silent pillar of support. I walked back to the grill, my movements deliberate, almost defiant. Conversations didn't immediately resume. People whispered, some casting furtive glances at Adam and Charlotte, others pointedly looking away, unable to meet their gaze. I flipped the last burger, the sizzle a sharp contrast to the hushed atmosphere, and closed the lid. The smoke curled lazily into the vast, indifferent sky. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I didn't feel like I had anything left to explain, anything to justify. My story, at last, was told. When your carefully crafted mask slips, can you ever truly reclaim the illusion, or does it shatter beyond repair? They didn't accept their fate with grace, not a single shred. Within mere days of the momentous cookout, Adam and Charlotte began an insidious campaign, meticulously planting seeds of doubt wherever they went. At the bustling local pharmacy, at the quaint post office, in the heart of the town square, whispers circulated, insidious rumors about me losing my memory, about mental confusion, about a cruel family betrayal orchestrated by a bitter, spiteful old woman. Charlotte even dissolved into theatrical tears at the women's group meeting, weeping about how they were being punished for their selfless attempts to help me, their manipulative act. But truth, unlike ephemeral gossip, possesses an uncanny ability to root itself deeper, to spread with an undeniable, unstoppable force. Eleanor, with her meticulous attention to detail, posted the irrefutable transfer records online, accompanied by a carefully worded, measured statement about what had truly transpired. She refrained from name-calling or baseless accusations. She simply stated the unadorned facts, clear and undeniable. Community pillars, including the respected Reverend Jonah and the formidable Mrs. Kim from the library board, quietly, yet powerfully, liked and shared her post, amplifying the truth. They had known me for too long, witnessed my unwavering character for too many years, to succumb to the new, distorted narrative being aggressively peddled by Adam and Charlotte. Within a single week, Charlotte was quietly asked to step down from the prestigious fundraiser committee she chaired, her influence crumbling. "We are looking to rebuild public trust," they politely, yet firmly, stated, their words a thinly veiled dismissal. Adam's weekly poker group simply stopped calling, the silence a stark repudiation. The man who had once been welcomed into every social circle suddenly found closed doors instead of warm invitations, his reputation in tatters. I offered no response. I didn't feel the need to correct their blatant lies or to defend my actions. I simply continued with the serene rhythm of my days, grocery shopping on Tuesdays, meticulously tending to my thriving tomato plants, waving with genuine warmth at neighbors I had known since before my children were even born. When people, their faces etched with curiosity or concern, inquired about my well-being, I would simply smile, a soft, serene expression on my face, and reply, "Better, thank you. Much, much better." There were moments when I would catch Adam watching me from his car, parked conspicuously across the street, as if desperately attempting to gauge the depth of the wound I had inflicted upon him. But I felt nothing sharp in return. No burning hatred, no vengeful desire to inflict reciprocal pain. Only the soft, liberating relief of distance, of severance, a quiet triumph. Sometimes, the most enduring form of justice isn't found in bitter retaliation, but in the profound act of simply stepping out from under the crushing weight they had foolishly assumed you would carry forever. Is justice truly sweeter when served without the lingering aftertaste of bitterness, but with a quiet, decisive finality? I moved into the small, charming cottage in early spring, precisely as the delicate dogwood blossoms began to unfurl their petals, a symbol of new beginnings. It nestled gracefully at the tranquil edge of a slow-moving river, boasting one delightfully creaky step out front and a wide, inviting porch that meticulously captured the warmth of the morning sun. It was the kind of place that demanded very little of you, save for the profound willingness to sit still and simply listen to the whispers of the wind. Eleanor arrived on weekends, a calming, steadfast presence, a silent anchor. She lovingly planted fragrant lavender and aromatic rosemary beneath the cottage windows, constructed a sturdy raised bed specifically for my beloved tomatoes and leafy greens, and meticulously lined the winding path with smooth stones she had painstakingly painted in soft, soothing earth tones. She worked quietly, often humming a tuneless melody, sometimes pausing only to inquire if I needed a refreshing glass of water or if I desired that particular corner of the garden for vibrant sunflowers. We didn't speak of Adam. Not anymore. That tumultuous chapter had folded in on itself, sealed shut with a profound silence that, miraculously, no longer carried the sharp, familiar ache it once had. There was simply nothing more to say. He had made his choices. I had made mine, and the path forward was clear. Each morning, I awoke to the symphony of birdsong, the gentle murmur of the river, and the soft, comforting creak of the porch rocking chair beside mine. On the precious days Eleanor stayed over, we would sit out there, comfortably wrapped in warm shawls, our mugs of tea radiating warmth in our hands, speaking absolutely nothing at all until the eastern sky transformed into a breathtaking canvas of soft pink and shimmering gold. One morning, as the sun broke gloriously across the ancient trees and spilled its golden light over the dew-kissed garden beds, I turned to her, my voice a soft, almost inaudible whisper. "It feels as though my soul is finally breathing again, Eleanor." She offered no verbal reply, merely smiled, a profound, understanding smile, and gently reached for my hand, her touch a balm to my weary spirit, a silent affirmation. It wasn't the life I had ever envisioned for myself, the one I thought I'd ultimately end up with, but it was profoundly honest, blessedly quiet, and unequivocally mine. Can true healing genuinely commence when you finally relinquish the futile hope that they will ever truly change? Does love, when given without an ounce of reciprocal respect, inevitably transform into an unpayable debt, forever accruing interest in the heart? For countless years, I tragically mistook my sheer endurance for genuine love, my suffocating silence for profound peace, and my relentless self-sacrifice for irrefutable proof that I truly mattered. But love, true, authentic love, is simply not real if it flows only in one solitary direction. I have finally ceased my desperate attempts to collect from those who never, in their hearts, intended to give, who only ever perceived what I could offer, never truly seeing who I fundamentally was. I have learned, with a profound and liberating clarity, that dignity is not something that is forcibly taken from you. It is, rather, something you willingly surrender. And I have, painstakingly, thread by precious thread, taken mine back. Not with burning anger, not with vengeful retribution, but with a quiet, resolute clarity, a reclaiming of self. Have you ever loved someone who treated your profound sacrifices as if they were mere silence, a given, never earned? When did you finally gather the strength to say enough, to choose yourself?